And we are live, Mr. Gracey, show 98. What's going on?
Hey, hey, hey.
What do you say?
What do it be?
Yeah,
We got
man.
Jackie the Joke Man Martling today. All thanks
Exciting.
to John. That's got to give that to John. Is a good get, my friend.
Gracious to effort,
nice
brother.
job.
Let's go.
Hey,
Thank you, sir.
Well, you worked on it. You've done it. It's awesome.
Thank you. I had to use you. I had to say, hey, my co-host is Chad Gracey from Live, by the way. So I think you want to be on this show with us. And what do you know? Here he is.
We'll see if he remembers when we played there. What was it, 97 we played? Yeah.
Yep. I was on my way to summer school because, I fucked around that year of high school and had to bring in my Walkman to listen to you guys. But hey, now, Chad, we were talking about something pretty, we were talking about 9/11 right before this show, and we were kind of getting into some of the speculation on how those towers fell down. And I keep going back and forth with the, is it controlled demolition? Is it not? And as we're talking about it, we're trying to like dissect it in our brains, and just the way, and engineers and architects that come about it saying that the top part isn't enough to make it free fall that way. It's probably the case. Yeah.
Well, then you said that, then you were talking about how it kind of splits apart.
Right.
It's like it splits apart. Well, in a normal controlled demolition, they don't like one piece of the top, like the plane hit the building, it damaged part of the building, right?
Yeah.
And I think that they use that mass of the top to like split the whole thing down. With controlled demolition.
Probably.
I'm not an engineer. I'm not an architect. I know. Great. I'm just speculating. Allowed to have my opinion.
That's a podcast, baby.
Splitting apart, like, so what I was saying is a normal controlled demolition. It's like, what's up? Bill's here. Normal controlled demolition is the whole building remains intact as it falls, right?
Right.
Whereas this piece, there was a piece that was basically almost disconnected from the other pieces that then fell down through the other. I don't know. That's what I'm
through the building. Yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. And here's what really so why? Because Tower 7, we know 100% was controlled demolition. So if that building was controlled demolition, why wouldn't the two towers be? You know what I'm saying? Like if it's all part of the plan, and there's no way you could get me to convince that the Tower 7 wasn't controlled demolition because of the way that thing went. Literally perfect.
Yeah.
The only
folds in and just goes down. Yeah.
Yep. The only theory, Chad, that I heard that, and again, I don't know if this is true or not, but somebody made like a graphic like they do at Flat Earth that could fucking really warp your mind and make you think it's true. So they took the tower that fell with the antenna on it, and when it came down, that antenna supposedly split Tower 7 in half.
I've just seen that video today. Yeah. No, this morning I saw that video. That's funny. Has it just come out? Because I've never seen it before.
I saw it like a couple months ago for the first time, and that was the first time I ever even heard that theory about it. So, yeah, this is something new they're pushing, I guess.
Interesting. Who knows?
But that would be like one way where, but I haven't seen one video where that antenna falls that way. Like you know what I'm saying? Just that graphic kind of showed it, but it's just fucking nuts, man.
Yeah, I've never seen anything else that talks about that or says that happened.
Ever since you showed me that, what was the gentleman's name? The congressman and firefighter, Weldon.
Weldon, yes.
Weldon.
Shit. Yeah.
I have been down this rabbit hole, dude. Like just watching like different camera angles of everything.
Mom's here.
Hey, Mama Gracey in the house.
Troy Garman's here too. What's up, Troy?
Troy.
Who's here?
Shout him out.
Lorenza, Daphne, Troy, Bill, and Mom.
Gracious audience, what is up? Dylan Nightingale.
Dylan, what's up?
What's up?
Well, before we were talking about 9/11, we were talking about, the happenings in LA, which are just great.
Ridiculous. And it seems like the people
illegals protesting to keep illegals in the country, waving Mexican flags while doing it. It's like, wait a minute. So do you love Mexico or do you not love Mexico.
Because if you love it so much, go back.
Because I got news for you. You're not taking over to California, okay?
Right.
Mexico is not going to occupy California. That's not going to happen ever. So you can be proud of your country, but head on back if you don't like it here.
Sure. What's with the media, Chad, trying to tell us that these are peaceful protests happening in LA?
They did the same thing in 2020 with the BLM riots. It's the exact same playbook. It's like, did you not learn or do you not care? I don't know which one it is. Like, they don't report the news. They report some bullshit fantasy that they live like, oh, no, these are peaceful riots. Meanwhile, there's a car burning in the background.
Yeah.
People are going friggin' nuts. Yeah, no, it's peaceful. It sounds good. Yeah, the one newscaster from LA, Fox LA, oddly enough, was like, yeah, I mean, it's just a bunch of people having fun watching a car burn. It's not really a riot.
Peacefully.
This guy said this on air. You're like, do you hear yourself? And like, what sheep will fall for that? Like, who's watching that and going, oh yeah, it's probably just a bunch of people having fun watching a car burn. Oh, okay. Yeah, great. It's like, what?
My favorite one, there's a girl, and they're trying to get like the right camera angle, and they're like, yeah, so the people are here just doing peaceful protests, and then you hear boom, and she's like, oh God, what's going on? And then the camera guy fucking goes, and then you see there's cars on fire and shit, but like, you're literally trying to report the fucking news. Don't sit here and tell us this is a peaceful protest, like, because then you're trying to fucking pump your narrative.
But then you have Karen Bass, commie Karen Bass, known communist.
And new scum.
And Newscomb and Hakeem Jeffries and all the the cast of characters that come out and always say the opposite of what is going on, and they're basically condoning the rioting. And then then he has to bring Trump sends in the National Guard to protect ICE because Karen Bass won't let the LAPD intervene, right? And then they blame Trump for sending in the National Guard. It's like it's so the conflation of facts is so crazy with the left. They do it all the time, all day long, just like the whole name they give to illegals, undocumented migrants. Oh, okay. Marketing. It's all marketing with the left.
It is, but you would think that they would realize that it's not working anymore, but somehow they're still tricking like a certain subset of people, or it's just they don't even care about tricking people. They're just like putting it out there, and I don't know. It just makes no fucking sense to me.
Yeah, it is what as I mean, I've said many times on the show. It's just like they double and triple down on stupid and never course correct. Why?
Right.
I don't know.
And like you were just saying, they're conflating facts. Like they're not even like that's giving them the benefit of the doubt. Like they're just straight up lying to us, like they're not conflating facts. They're fucking.
Oh, I mean, look what happened to Abrego Garcia, who is now coming back to face trial for human trafficking. He's going to go to jail for that. Oh yeah, they're bringing him back. The Dems think this is some victory for them, but they're bringing him back to face trial for human trafficking. Like that's basically what's his whole job is human trafficking. Okay. So now he's gonna go through trials, been indicted. He's coming back. The Dems are like, "Yay, we got him back. We got our poster child of man, wife beating, MS-13, human trafficker. We got our poster child back. Yay! The good guys are the bad guys, and the bad guys are the good guys, always." And so they're bringing him back. They're going to indict him. He's indicted. They're going to try him. He's going to go to jail. And then after he serves his jail sentence, guess where he's going? Back to El Salvador. Bye.
But you know what, dude? It is kind of a victory for them because he shouldn't even have the opportunity to go through our fucking justice system. He should be in his country and fucking staying there.
Well, I mean, as Trump often does, he gives them what they want, and then they just continue to hang themselves.
Yeah, that's true.
And then we got Dylan here just said Elon and the Don are mates again. You know what? We were just talking about this, and I was thinking this from the very beginning that it was all ploy.
Yep.
It was all just theater. And then I saw a video of a guy in his Tesla. He's like, "Oh, I can like Elon again. I'll take my fuck Elon stickers off my Teslas. Okay. Oh, now I got to put them back on. Oh no, it's like it's so ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
They just follow whatever is told to them. It's like and the new narrative, of course, today is peaceful protest, peaceful protest, peaceful protest, peaceful protest. I guess they think if they say it enough times that well, the sheeple will believe it.
Yeah, you're right.
That's how it works.
But don't these people realize, like, as they're sitting there, like, 3 years ago, like praising Elon Musk for all this stuff, like, and then now 3 years later, they're saying they hate him because he's fucking got Trump, all this, and now they're coming back like on his side. Like, don't they realizing that they're flip flopping and it's not even their own ideas? They're just being plugged into their head, and they're just like, yes, yes, yes.
I guess I don't know if they don't care or don't realize what's happening to them, how brainwashed they truly are. I don't know.
Or is it Chad, that fucking, because every person I talk to is kind of normal. It's the online people that is doing this. Are they people, or is it really all just fucking bots? And
well, Rogan keeps talking about this. He thinks it's like 80% bots on across all social media.
Right.
And it's probably China or Iran or friggin' North Korea.
Or us
or our own government from funded by USAID, which is not a thing anymore, but that's how it was. You just pumping in propaganda to keep everyone divided. That's wild.
It really is. And we keep saying, like, well, we know their playbook, so they can't pull it again. But somehow,
Cashel O'Reilly saying Trump's fucking up the South African government properly. Yes, that's another thing. So the South African president comes to comes to the White House. I don't know the guy's name. Sorry, Cash. I'm sure you don't care because he seems like an idiot. But and apparently he was coming in there to like set Trump straight on what's going on, and Trump was like, "Okay, let's play the video," because they're literally lying about killing white farmers. Like they're literally killing white farmers all over the place in South Africa. It's happening. And then some white farmers, we give them asylum who actually need real asylum from basically a white genocide that's happening in South Africa. And then the left complains about that. Wait a minute. So are you for asylum seekers, or do they have to be a certain color or fit your parameters in a certain way? That's how it works. That's how it works. Because when there's some white people that need to escape actual danger in their country, that's a bit, no, we can't have them in here. It's just white supremacy. It's like, no. It's called legitimate fear for your life. Not just saying that till you can cross the border illegally.
Right. Well, wasn't remember that one girl Robin we had on here? Wasn't she trying to get asylum from Canada? Like, because she was like claiming that.
Yeah.
And hey, by all means, man, fucking Trudeau was a crazy person back then.
He sure was.
But I just thought that was funny. Like, she was trying to get asylum from Canada, like get citizenship like somewhere else first, and then claim asylum.
I'm tell you what, Canada is basically controlled by the CCP at this point.
Yeah, huh?
And or the globalists.
I just don't know what the end game is, and I'm really getting my mind blown by Antarctica gaining like 100 billion pounds of fucking ice in the past year.
Oh, like tons.
Yeah, tons. Whatever it is, like something
like
crazy.
Gigaton of ice it gained.
It almost. I think it built another shelf around the world because the Earth is flat.
Well, it's another. Yeah, they put up another wall around the world. Yeah, Jesus God. I'm all for a lot of conspiracy theories, but Jesus God, the flat Earth thing,
they've been putting out videos. They've been putting out videos, Chad, of people going over the ice wall and these cities like beyond it. It's kind of funny, man. But you could just tell it's all AI generated and all that.
Yeah. I mean,
we do have,
the flat earthers like, no one ever visits Antarctica. Bullshit. People visit Antarctica all the time. You can go there. You can go there.
Right.
You can't go there and you can't just, hire a plane and go down there. It has to be scheduled. And I mean, I don't know why, but it's whatever, treaties, environment, who knows? But the fact that there's a wall there holding it.
Is that even true though?
The wall holds in the water. It's like, wait a minute. It's because the water would just spin off the planet. It's like, no, it's called momentum.
Gravity, Earth, round.
And it's like, no, the water just doesn't spin off into the Earth because it's spinning. It's called angular momentum.
Well,
So
let's get into.
go stand on a train and jump up and down. Do you stop? Does the train go by you? No, you stay with the train as you jump up and down, as it's
Wait,
going
do
60
you?
miles an hour. Yeah,
No, I'm
absolutely.
joking. Yeah. I'm
Because you're
joking.
traveling 60 miles per hour as well.
Anyway,
Anyway,
let's get to our one and only guest that we have here, Mr. Jackie the Joke Man Martling. What's going on, dude?
A body in motion tends to stay in motion unless opposed by an opposite force. Is that what we're
This is
doing?
true.
Are we doing science?
We're going physics.
Antarctica. Jesus, I haven't been there in weeks.
Yeah, Jackie, we got to debunk a lot of the shit over there, man. People coming on the podcast telling us the Earth is flat, dude. We gotta see what's going on in their head. How you been, Jackie? What's going on?
Isn't flat?
We're hoping not.
I'm actually great. I don't know why, but I finally got it together to start a diet like 2 months ago, and it's actually working. And I'm so proud of myself, I can hardly stand within my skin. But that's as exciting as my life gets.
Man, Talk to me. What is this new diet?
No, there's so many of these newfangled things. Do this, do that, do that. The only real diet is eat less. Put tape over your mouth and freaking eat less. That's what works. And that I'm not saying that's easy, because it ain't, especially if you're a hog like me. But there's got to be more boring things than talking about my weight. Let's talk about the weather.
Let's go.
Let's go.
I don't know anything. Where am I talking to? Where are you guys?
I'm in New Jersey.
I'm in California, Irvine.
That's better. Very good.
Yes, sir.
And where are you? Are you in New Jersey or New York?
I'm on the North Shore of Long Island.
Okay.
Sitting right here on the Long Island Sound, and it's
beautiful.
It's fantastic, except it's pouring rain. And
yeah.
No, how do I know? Do I know you guys? Are you comics? Are you podcasters? What are you?
Let me take this first, Chad, and then we'll go in. So yeah, I'm a stand-up comedian, not nearly as long as you. Only been in it about 2.5 years. But Chad over there, he is the drummer from Live. So back in 1997, he was on the Howard Stern show, and he was playing some songs in there. So you guys actually have crossed paths back in the day.
Well, it's nice to see you again. Now, I've heard people talk about that. Live is the name of the band, like
that's
quote
correct,
unquote,
yes.
L-I-V-E. Yep. I'm an old, I haven't bought an album since Chicago 2 in 1971. So music doesn't compute for me, but it's nice to see you again.
Nice to see you as well. Yeah, I don't think we met when I was there, but you were around somewhere. Obviously, we played a couple of songs, and Howard was a fan of our band.
In the studio.
Yeah.
Are you sure 97? Because I was still on the show in 97.
Yeah, it was 9. Yes, it was for our third record. It's called Secret Samadhi. Yeah, so it was 97. Yeah.
Oh,
you were there, Jackie.
Well, thank you.
No, I'm sure I was impressed. So is the band still together?
Ooh,
that's a good question. None
of mine are.
The singer's still touring, but with no original members other than himself. So
sounds like the Platters.
I was just gonna say it's like kind of what happened with the Howard Stern show. The original Beatles left, and then we got stuck with whatever they had afterwards.
Like the Temptations. There's like one guy that's a cousin of one of the guys that knew one of the guys who was originally in the group. But I was the biggest Temptation fan in the world. And I was in Atlantic City like 30 or 40 years ago, walking along, and somebody said, "Did you see that? That was the Temptations." I said, "It could have been any 5 black guys. I didn't know what they looked like. I was just a huge fan, But who cares? Well, I'm sorry about your bands, unless you're glad to be out of that.
I'm glad to not tour anymore, and I'm still getting paid from it, so that's all. Mailbox money is always good.
It don't get any better than that. Hey, I got a check for $6 the other day. I guess they're showing the movie Comedy's Dirtiest Dozen somewhere in Australia.
Oh man, there you go.
The money, it rolls in.
Hey, there you go. $6 at a time.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Jackie, I wanted to talk to you kind of about the time that you left the Howard Stern show. We'll start there, and we're going to go through your entire career, if you don't mind.
That's such an original question. It's been 25 years. Is that the best you got? You want to know what happened? Did you ever have a job? Did you ever have a job and think you deserved a raise and go in and say to your boss, I'd like a raise? And he says no, so you leave your job. That's what happened. That's
fair
entirely
enough.
You could stretch it and pull it like silly putty all you want, but that's the bottom line. I asked for more money and they said, we're not going to give you that much. And I said, all right, and there was repercussions and, I was sorry, then I wasn't sorry. And, but I'm alive and well. And the truth is, if I had stayed on that show, I might be dead now. So all's fair in love and war. That's all.
Well put. Happened for a reason. But let me ask you this. So it's a business decision from management's end, maybe Howard's end, whatever. But did you feel that your personal relationship with Howard should have been stronger and he should have went to bat for you when this was going on?
Everybody asked the same thing. Who knows? There's a million ways to look at it. I do know that he was making enough money already that what I asked for was, a deck chair on the Titanic. So I don't think, I don't know exactly what was going on in his head, but I do know that I had a lot to do with launching. You know what? I was like the booster. I was the booster rocket.
Yeah.
And once it got into orbit, when the booster fell off, who cares? So, but I have no hard feelings. It's just odd. I'm not pals with them. I don't see them. I was emailing Gary the other day for an unrelated thing, but it was a great ride and it was the most fun in the world. And it's crazy because with YouTube and Twitter, all these things, there's so many kids that weren't even born when I left the show in 2001 that are huge fans. I got emails from the greatest email I ever got. A kid from Toronto emailed me like 5 years ago, or however, you lose track of time when you get older. Not that I'm older, but if I ever get older.
Sure.
And he said, I'm from Toronto. I'm 28 years old. And I recently discovered the Howard Stern show. And I immediately thought it was the greatest thing in the world. But then I found there were clips of that old Howard Stern show on YouTube and started watching them. And he said, it's like having a favorite band and then discovering their old albums and finding out their old albums were better. How great a compliment is that?
That's great.
That's like, I love the show, but I love the show back then more. And he wasn't around, so, I actually kind of double checked to make sure I didn't write that email myself.
Such a great
You never
email.
know, you gotta bullshit yourself somewhere along the line,
Jackie, how did your time start on the show? So in other words, were you immediately hired as a writer on there and a personality, or were you kind of doing guest appearances? And
I guess this is your way of telling me you didn't read my autobiography.
No, this is my way of introducing our audience to your biography.
I was a musician all through high school and college and all through the 70s. And then I segued into stand-up comedy, but there was no comedy on Long Island. And we created it. The one variety show, the guy wouldn't pay us money. So me and another guy started a show in a bar with my amplifier and microphone and blah, 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 blah. And we started doing comedy shows. And that show ran for 15 years. But I had worked in a recording studio. So I knew how to make a record, which is disarmingly simple. Chad, if you want to make a record, all you need is your master tape and a few dollars and a picture for the outside, and you're all set to go. And
Basically,
6 months after I started stand-up comedy, you all have a starting point. And I called my starting point January 79, when a bar owner actually handed me $40 for telling jokes and playing the guitar instead of playing the guitar and telling jokes. That was my switch.
Yeah.
But I knew from working in a recording studio how to make an album. And one night I came home from this barroom, this restaurant gig, and I said to my girlfriend, they laughed every time I opened my mouth. I should make a record. She said, well, don't look at me. Get your hand out of your ass and make a record. So I borrowed money from everybody. And I had a comedy album 6 months after I started in comedy. Now, nowadays, everybody has their CDs and they sell them. It was no big deal. But back then, nobody. It was unheard of. George Carlin and Bill Cosby, those guys had records because they were signed to Columbia or whatever. But this was a homegrown album, and I made it. And it was so exciting because we'd get done with shows, and I'd stand at the door and sell my albums for $5 and autograph them, which was such a rush to be signing your autograph. It was like I died and went to heaven. And the other comics goofed on me. Like, here he goes with his records. Go ahead, get out your pen. And all of a sudden, one day they realized he just made an extra $75 tonight selling his stupid album. Maybe he's not that dopey. So I made another album. And all along the way, I was sending them to everybody. If I bumped into you on the street, you said, I'm a disc jockey, let me send you my record. And my future ex-wife came and started to work with me. And by 1982, I had 3 comedy LPs out, like actual records. And I was sending them to everybody. And I was working in Washington, D.C. And the owner of the club, Garvin's Laughing, said, hey, there's a wild man here that just got fired on the radio, and he's moving to NBC in New York. You should look him up. You guys would hit it off. So just like I sent the albums to everybody, me and Nancy sent 3 albums and the matching cassettes and all my promo. We sent out 300 or 400 sets of this crap, throwing shit against the wall. That's how it works. Chad, like throwing out demo recordings,
Oh, yeah.
And one of the packages went to Howard Stern, care of WNBC. Who knew where it was going to land? I didn't know. I didn't know who it was. I didn't know anything about radio. I had no real designs on even being a comic. It's just when my last band broke up, I said, I am done depending on other guys. I'm sure you can relate to this, Chad. At one point in Detroit,
oh yeah,
I was so frustrated, and I am not a violent, and I'm a hippie. And I got so upset. We had a prodigy organ player that played the Hammond organ, and he was ridiculously talented, but he was such an asshole. And I couldn't take it. We're in the parking lot, and I punched him in the chest. And I said, why can't I get in a band with normal musicians? And the light bulb went off. It's because they don't make them.
Okay. There's not a whole lot of normal musicians, exactly.
Right. And then when my last band broke up, I said, enough of this. If I'm going to bomb and do terribly, I'll do it on my own. And I certainly wasn't going to get a job. So I started telling the jokes that I've been collecting since I was in 3rd grade on stage. And everybody loved them. Nobody else was doing it. And I was killing. So in 1982, I sent these records. Me and Nancy sent the records to Howard Stern. We didn't hear anything from him for a couple months because he had just got to NBC. And Nancy called. I was in my mother's attic. That was where Jokeland was. And Nancy called up and said, hey, that disc jockey Howard Stern just called. He wants you to call him. So I called NBC, asked to speak to Howard Stern. He got right on the phone. And he said, listen, we listened to your records and you know every joke. You're a pisser. Do you want to come in, hang out on the air today? Well, I'm running Governor's Comedy Shop in Levittown on Long Island, and he's inviting me to WNBC in Manhattan. It wasn't a big decision. I said, here I come. And I went in, and the same group as the last day I worked there in 2001. It was Howard and Robin and Fred. And I walked in, and I didn't know anything about radio, so I didn't know the magic, but we clicked. Immediately we clicked. And at the end of the sitting there for 3 or 4 hours laughing, Howard said, man, you're a lot of fun. Why don't you come back again next week? And that was that. I came back. I worked every week for 3 years for free. But along the way, I
What?
was writing ideas and giving them ideas. At one point, I talked them into Nancy, talked them into giving me $25 a week for parking,
Wow.
which was a joke. You know, it was costing me a fortune to work on this show. And he'd always, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have any money on me. Or how's 20? I don't have a 5. You know, it became a running gag.
Sure.
And to this day, I have comics come up to me and say, I can't believe you invited me on the Howard Stern show in the early 80s. And I said, no. I'd say, do you want to come on the Howard Stern show? And these dopey comedians would say, what's it pay?
Oh,
what do you
wow.
mean, what's it pay? You're going to be on the 50,000 watts of a major, the main station of WNBC. If you cannot explain advertising to somebody that doesn't grasp the concept.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'd have to, you know, twist arms to get people, but I gradually gave him ideas. And then one day he got fired. He got rehired at K-Rock. And I was back on one day a week, and I was on the road, Virginia Beach. I got a phone call. He said, we're going to mornings, and I need a price for 2 days a week. So I gave him a ridiculously low price. And I was on 2 days a week for a month or so. But he was so much funnier on the days when I was passing him notes. I went to 3 days, 4 days, and then eventually by, I would say, August or September, I was on 5 days a week, and that's when we syndicate. I always say we. That's when he syndicated to Philadelphia and Washington, and we went to Pluto. It was like putting a frog on a frying pan. It was very gradual. You know, and one day Jed woke up and goddamn, he's a millionaire. You know, it was magic, absolute magic. You know,
Jackie, did you feel the pressure?
I hope that was a long enough answer.
Yeah, man, it was awesome.
Sorry.
When you guys start expanding into national markets like that, do you feel the pressure of speaking in front of hundreds of thousands, millions of people at the time? Like, do you feel that in the studio?
No, because I didn't say much. I didn't say much, and we were 4 people hanging out. We were 4 people sitting there having a bagel and a coffee and hanging out. You never think about. That's why so many times people would come on the show, and they'd say stuff you couldn't believe, because they'd lose sight of the fact. I mean, I'm talking to you and you. They don't realize that there's 15 million people listening. You know, and they're like, whoa, and, you know, nobody's going to stop them.
Right.
But it was so great. But whenever I stopped and thought about it, I would just, you know, I'd be amazed, because if you write a movie, or if you're in a movie, you write a line or you do act in a movie, in a couple of months, the movie's going to come out with any luck, and you can see yourself on the screen. If you're a comedian, you can write a couple jokes for your act, and that night you could try them out and see how they work. We're sitting there live to millions and millions of people, and I'm writing a line and putting it up, and a lot of times he'd read it without even pre-reading it. So I think of an idea, and 5 or 10 seconds after I get the idea, there's millions of people laughing. You can't even wrap your head around that. It was, but you didn't think about it. And of course, you know, Mickey Mantle, you know, got a hit 3 times out of 10. You know what? The notes are flying. But a certain amount of them, you know, he'd reject some of them, and some of them might have fallen flat. But we didn't know. We're sitting there in the room, and we're all laughing and having the time of our lives. If somebody wants to join in and laugh with us, that's fine, you know. And it worked big time. We just killed. He just killed. You know, I don't think he ever thought in terms of, you know, oh no, there's millions of people listening. You know, it was huge and got bigger and bigger. You know, I'd get interviewed in 1988, like the Daily News, and they say, well, you know, you guys are so red hot, and that's such a great show, but how long do you think it can last? And I got asked that same question for 15 years, you know. All right, so now Howard's got a book out, and you guys are on 20 stations, but how long can it last? And then all of a sudden there's a movie, and there's 55 stations, and there's the TV show, and he just kept reinventing, and we all just rose to the occasion. And it was, and it was classic. It was absolutely and it still is classic,
Yeah. The format's changed a lot for sure. Sorry, Jack, go ahead.
I was going to say, was that whole thing planned, or was it just kind of like happening? And was there someone in the background going, we need to do this and keep going this way? Or
You know what it
was it just like an expansion of, because it was so magic?
Howard was Dorothy going to Oz. He got hooked up with Robin, and they were partners. And then, well, what happened first was Howard was on the air in Detroit, and he had worked at a radio station in Connecticut in college, and Fred Norris had worked with him and helped him. So Fred is the unsung. Fred created the show, but that's another story. Right. And Howard got hired in Detroit, and he would call Fred on the phone, and Fred would do bits over the phone on the air for Howard. And when they offered him the job in Washington, D.C., he said, I'll go, but you got to bring this guy, Fred Norris. So Smart. He brought Fred with him, and they had the show on DC 101. Then somebody brought Robin, introduced her to Howard. So the three of them were there. And then he got fired, and he got hired at WNBC, and he didn't get to bring Robin right away. He had to, it was a little tense, but they didn't want to go for it right away. But he said, don't worry, I'll get you up here. And I think he did. I think it probably took him a couple months, and then it was the three of them. And but I don't think he had any long range plan. I don't think he was like, let me find a woman to do news, or let me find a black person to absorb some of the shock. I don't think any of that was the least bit calculated. Of course, right. What do I know? And the fact he bumped into Fred, who was maybe the funniest, smartest, most unbelievable human being in the world that nobody knows. The hooking up with Fred was probably the greatest thing he ever did. And then Robin came, and then they came to New York, and then they stumbled. They didn't stumble upon me. I sent my records, but you're in show business. Who knows if he was ever going to open that package? Who knows if they were ever going to look at it? Who's this guy? We never heard of this guy, but they must have said, wow, this is a New York comedian with 3 albums out. He must know what he's doing. Or maybe they thought, this guy looks like an idiot. Here's somebody we could crap on. Who knows what they knew? But we clicked so well from the beginning, because I have a great laugh, and I know it, and I'm fun, and I'm a very low threshold to laugh. And to this day, people have no idea what I did on that show, because I got picked on so much and laughed so much. That was almost enough to justify my presence in the studio. Nobody had any idea that I was pumping lines a mile a minute and making funnier than shit. And and people would find, and when they discover that, I think it's so interesting. If they ever made a real movie about what really happened, I think it'd be fascinating.
Yeah,
but,
dude.
That's not what happened. I mean, I barely made it into the movie. They were doing a whole movie, and I wasn't going to be part of the movie. And I think maybe Fred wasn't either, because we were doing so much. And then they threw that out and started over. But he made the movie, so I just came in at the tail end. All of a sudden, they were big shots and big stars, and here's the new guy that had nothing to do with, but I was thrilled to be in the movie, and it was
sure.
And and that's how it worked out, which was fine. It's Howard's ball game, and he does. He deserves everything he's got.
Sure. Yeah, ultra talent. It just seems from like an outsider's point of view, like his loyalty isn't as much as it should be. Like it seems like the only one he really went to bat for was Robin back in the day. But you guys, like you said, Fred, Robin, Baba Booey, they were all such huge parts of the show. But it seems like if, something got upset Howard or something, he would have no problem being like, fuck off and take off or whatever.
No, he's been incredibly loyal to Gary and Fred. They make millions and millions and millions.
That's good to hear.
But I was the one who I was the Jew in line at the Holocaust that says, "What do you mean we're going into? I don't want to go into any oven." And everybody else, don't say nothing. I love Fred, but after 35 years, I would almost bet my house that Fred has never uttered the words, "I want more."
Right.
He just patiently waited, and now I think he's making $5 million a year. He just waited and waited, but
Yep.
and that's how he played it, and that was fine. And he there's too much to go into, but
Sure.
he's just a delightful guy, and I've never listened to the show. I never listened to the show when I was on it either. And people ask me, what do you think of the new show? When I say I don't know, they roll their eyes like I'm full of crap. But I wasn't a radio listener before I got there.
Right,
Sure.
But
Back in the day, Jack.
It's interesting. Go ahead.
I got two things here. One, I just realized you were kind of like the first influencer who like realized how to monetize your situation. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, comedians were calling up. How much do I get paid? And you were like, get paid? This is like advertisement for you, dude.
I went in there, and I've had 516-922 wine as my dirty joke line. And it has been since January of 1979. We were starting this show at this restaurant. Like I said, that's the beginning of comedy on Long Island, at this restaurant called Cinnamon. We're like, how the hell are we going to advertise this? We have no money. Nobody knows who we are. And I got the bright idea. I'll get a telephone line, and we'll give out the number, and I'll tell a dirty joke, and then say, tonight we're at Cinnamon in Huntington. Come see some comedy and tell some more dirty jokes. It's just the basic building of a radio show or a television show. A little content, a little advertisement, a little content, that's simple. And I went in there, and he said, this is Jackie Martling, and he'll be at Governor's Comedy Shop this weekend. And it's millions of people listening. And 516-922 wine, and it blew up. And then after the second week, I got a phone call from Howard, and he said, I got some bad news. And I thought, well, it was fun. It was fun while it lasted, right? And he said, I can't give out that phone number anymore. I said, what are you talking about? He says, I give out the 516-922 wine, and I guess little kids are calling, and NBC got complaints.
Oh, no.
I said, well, fuck the number. Who needs that? And that was that. So then we continued on, and Governor's Comedy Shop just went through the roof. I mean, it just was, and anybody that came on the show got promoted, and it just worked out fantastic. And I started making the albums right away, and then albums led to cassettes, and then it was so funny because I was getting popular from Howard's show, even when I was on one day a week, and they opened up a video store in my little hometown. I'm in Oyster Bay, and on the North Shore of Nassau County. It's a hamlet, like Billy Joel lives here, blah blah blah, but it's a hamlet. So we got a video store. So I said, listen, I got to do something. So me and Nancy put together a VHS tape, one, edited together a bunch of comedy and made one videotape and called it A Safe Distance from Genius, and put it in the video store, and I advertised it on the Stern Show.
Oh, wow.
And I said, you got to be crazy. There's hundreds of people coming here to rent that one stupid tape. So we went and got copies made, it was so ass backwards. It's just so much fun. And then everything I did, I'd advertise. And then it became attack Jackie for his stupid stuff he's doing, but meanwhile, it all made sense. Me and Nancy bought a couple houses in Bayville, and they're making fun of us because we all know what a ridiculous investment it is to buy real estate. And he's saying, oh, Jackie's got these shacks, and everybody's saying, yeah, he's a jerk. Oh, yeah, jerk, the places are worth,
Yeah.
And it was just fun. It was just fun. And then I came out with different things that I was doing. And they always made fun of me, but it was always Just something I did,
Yeah, you're allowing them to joke on you, but you're sitting there laughing all the way to the bank as you're collecting some of those things.
I was gonna say,
Howard's second book, there was like a chapter about each of us in his books. And in the second book, the chapter about me, the first 2 words were "fuck Jackie." And if you read the book, it's called Miss America, I think it's called. Yep. And you look in the first 2 words in Miss America under my chapter are "fuck Jackie," and he goes on to, berate me. And at the end, he says, "Well, I got to tell you the truth. For all the hassle and all the crap he gives me, it's worth it. Jackie's worth it. He's invaluable to me." So somebody called up and said, "Howard, I read the book and I agree with you. F Jackie." So they kind of smiled. And then a few minutes later, another guy called up and said, "Hey, I read the book too, and I agree with you. F Jackie." And after the second one, it was carved in stone, and everything was F Jackie, F Jackie. So what did I do? The next CD I put out, I called F Jackie.
F Jackie.
And it sold like mad.
Beautiful.
And every time he said F Jackie, like, thanks for the advertisement. I'm not stupid,
That's brilliant. I love it. It's so great.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah. You mentioned earlier about he would pick on you, and like there's epic shows where he epically picks one person and just goes at them. Is that sometimes real, or is it just part of the show?
It's so bordered on real, and it wasn't. It never really was in. There were no fist fights, but it would get heated because, we used to say in high school, if it doesn't break your balls, it doesn't break your balls. You know what I mean? It's like the bully. The town bully is going to keep punching you in the face. If you don't say ouch, he's going to keep punching you until you say ouch. So I learned to say ouch. But the challenge was when I'm sitting there, and I can defend myself because I'm smart. So when I got Howard and Robin and Gary and Fred all picking on me, I'm like Bruce Lee in the middle. I'm defending myself. But the trick was to deflect. Like, well, say, I know I'm an idiot. Right. But Fred, I know I'm an idiot. Look at Gary's ass. And people don't believe it, but I would write things for Howard to say to insult me, which is it's a hard thing to wrap your head around,
Right.
Same thing when Billy West, who was the most talented guy ever, was doing the Jackie puppet. I'd write insults for the Jackie puppet to insult me. So he's holding a puppet of me, insulting me with jokes I wrote. Billy says that they put out a documentary about me, and Billy says that, and he said, "Man, that's Twilight Zone, man."
Totally.
Really great
that's
fun.
So great.
I remember a segment back. Chad, did you have something, or was
I was going to ask? So you were obviously there when the Whack Pack started, right? Who was the first Whack Packer?
I coined that phrase.
You did.
Wow,
that's great.
Yeah. And I think Captain Shanks, this guy that used to make weird phone calls, and he did all kinds of odd stuff, and he was so strange. I mean, his early calls, he was so strange. We didn't know who or what he was, but if it was interesting at all, if Howard or we got a kick out of it, pursue it. And I think he was the first guy, and I don't know at what point, but there were 2 or 3 of them at some point, and it was like then Crackhead Bob came into the picture somewhere, and maybe Celeste with the bad leg. And after there was a couple of them, Howard said, "Oh yeah, we got Crackhead Bob tomorrow," and when we got a call from Captain Shanks, and I wrote, and he said, the Whack Pack, which is so funny because now for all practical purposes, I'm a member of the Whack Pack, except they get on the air and I don't,
Right.
But it's great.
That's
fun.
funny.
It's great fun.
So Jackie, with the joke hunt that started after you left the show, like, was this just something that like you had like you wanted to do, or was this something that you were asked to do? Like, how did that come about?
It's not a believable story, but the truth of it is none of these stories are believable. I mean, the whole story of the Howard Stern show, if somebody made it up, you wouldn't believe it. But since it actually happened, and I used to go in when Sirius XM first started. It was XM, and when I had put out a joke book in like 1998, and they had a big party for me at Caroline's. And this guy, he's dead now, but this terrific guy, Mark Parento, came up to me and said, "Hey, do you want me to play your CDs on the radio?" And I said, "Did you ever listen to one of them?" He says, "What? I love them. I got them memorized." I said, "Well, they're so filthy, you can't play two." He said, "No, we're coming up with a thing called satellite radio that's uncensored." I said, "Well, if you ever do that, give me a call." So years later, after I was already off the show, Howard must have given me a plug. Sometimes we'd be killing so badly, he'd say, "Listen, whatever you do, make sure you see Jackie at the Riviera in Las Vegas." That must have been embedded into a best of. And Mark called me up and said, "Hey, Jackie, as long as you're going to be in Las Vegas, why don't you come to the CES show? We're going to have a booth for XM radio, that uncensored radio I told you about." And I said, "Well, I'm not even on the show anymore. I'm on Long Island, but if you fly me out to Vegas, I'll do whatever you want." So he flew me out to Vegas, and we stayed at the Palms, and it was just the greatest time in the world. And they had set up one channel. So they have it all, like Bobby Slayton and the guys from Yes. It was a potpourri, and they're pumping out this stuff. There was no Sirius radio didn't even have satellites up yet. But they're promoting the hell out of all this on the CES show. And so I was enamored with this. And then it became a thing in New York. And I had a good friend that I ran into who was a younger guy, this guy, Phil. And he was a huge fan. And he had a show at noon. It wasn't called Raw Dog yet. I think it was just the Comedy Channel or whatever. And he'd have me, he had a show called Not Phil's Show or something stupid. It was an hour show, and he'd have me on, and just like somebody would call in with a song request, he took requests, and people would call in with a comedian request. And if somebody said play some Red Fox or play some Dice Clay or what, Sam Kennison, I had a story about all of them because I knew everybody. So I'd tell a silly little story, and it was so much fun, and we really enjoyed it. And at one point, they were going to make me the voice of Raw Dog. And all of a sudden, they said, the deal is off because we think we got Howard Stern coming on here.
Wow.
And I thought, why bullshit me? Because in my mind, there was no way that Howard was ever going to go to satellite radio, because dancing around the rules and not cursing was the whole show.
Right.
Batting your nose up against the man, and being careful not to tread over the line. I saw all of a sudden, if you're going to play in a football field with no lines on the field, no score. So, and then all of a sudden, a couple of months later, of course, there Howard was, signed with, and I thought, well, at least they weren't lying. So I went in there with Phil one day. It's so funny. You'd have to see how Sirius, like Howard's new studio was way at the end, and Phil would operate out of a studio at the other end. And of course, every time I went in there, people say, "Oh, you got to see the studio they're building for Howard," and they take me down and show. Like, I don't want to. All right,
right.
And they were putting together this amazing thing, and then he came on, and one day after they were ensconced there, I got done with Phil, and I walked out the door, and Gary was standing there. He said, "Hey, you want to see the new studio?" And I didn't want to say I saw it already because I would have got somebody in trouble. I said, "Sure." So we go down, and of course it's ridiculous, so beautiful. And we leave out of a different door. And Tim Sabian's standing there. He goes, "Hey, Jackie, how come you don't have a show on Sirius?" I said, "Well, nobody ever asked me." He said, "Well, you should have a show. You should have a show on the Stern channels."
Nice.
I said, "Sure." So he says, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." And I looked up, and there was like a hole in the calendar. I said, "Tuesdays, 5:00, right there. Give me a show." He said, "All right." So we talked about it, and it got knocked around a little bit. So then one day, Howard invites me to go out to dinner.
Oh,
and
wow.
we go out to dinner, and he says, "So you you want to have a show on Sirius? I said, yeah, it'd be fun. I'll tell a lot of jokes, you know, the whole thing. He says, yeah, all right. And then it wound up that Jackie had gone to Howard and begged for his own show. You know, that's how, but that's how things get translated. That's just how it happens. And, you know, I didn't care. And I was going to get a show. And I got the bright idea, why don't I get a partner? And I called my old friend Ian Carr. And we had Jackie's Joke Hunt for 8 years. It was an hour of filthy, filthy jokes. And it was so much fun. We got paid very little. And they said, well, you know, it's only going to be on, you know, once. And then they wound up playing it 6 times a week. They'd repeat it whenever they wanted, which was fine with me because it was all good for me. And we had everybody on. You know, we had the original Jersey Boys sang a couple songs. We had Sid Bernstein that brought the Beatles to America. We had Pat Cooper a bunch of times and Bobby Slayton and Steve Sharippa from The Sopranos, who was an old friend from the Riviera. And everybody'd come on and I'd give them a joke to read and they'd read the joke and I'd yell at them for telling it wrong. And it was a free-for-all. And we did 402 shows of solid, filthy jokes. And everybody just, and one day they just pulled the plug. That new woman came in who had a string around Howard's balls and they just said, okay, you're done.
This must be the famous Jennifer Witz, I think. Maybe.
Huh?
Is that her name, Jennifer Witz?
No.
Oh, no?
And that's a stage that, you know, all I know is that I had known Howard for 18 years and he got married and he invited people to his wedding that he had met a month before. And he didn't invite me to the wedding. And people said, are you crazy? But I said, no, he can't invite me to his wedding because if one person comes up to him and says, wow, it's really nice to see Jackie again, that'll wreck his whole night. So then they fired us. And a couple weeks later, they had the Christmas party that they had every year. And me and Ian weren't invited to the Christmas party. And then they had a huge, I think it was 60th birthday party for Howard, where they invited everybody in the world. And all my friends were like, Jackie, can I come as a +1? I want to go to the birthday party. And they wouldn't believe me when I told them I wasn't invited. I mean, everybody and their mother was invited to a 60th birthday party, except for me, which was almost flattering, you know, almost flattering. And I understand, you know, and I don't say this with any, you know, bile or anything. It's just that's how it went. The truth, you know.
Yeah,
that's you know.
You're so the way, like, I hear you describing those things, and you're just like real nice, like kind of with everything you say. But I hear some of those things, I'm like, why wouldn't he invite Jackie to there? And you just kind of like, no big deal.
That is the question. That is, and I'm telling you. You know, because people would have been glad to see me, and it would have been, you know.
No, I get it.
Maybe I stepped on his foot in 1994. I don't know, but nobody's ever asked. It's never been answered. Who knows? You know.
Sure. One other thing for you, Jackie, because I know you got a tight schedule here.
What?
I
got another gig in December, you asshole.
Sweet. So we'll be going till then. Let's go. But Jackie, people used to call up the Howard Stern show and they would give jokes and try to stump you with them, and you would say the punchline. Now, is this because you have like known these jokes for a long time, or were this
is one of the first after I'd been in comedy a while. There was a guy on Long Island named Kevin Sullivan. He did a thing called Stump the Band. And people would say, Bruce Springsteen. And of course, he'd have a Bruce Springsteen song and he'd play it, and it'd usually be a funny parody. And there was nobody they could yell out that he wouldn't have a song. And I thought that was fun. I said, well, I could do that with jokes. And at the end of my show, I would say, all right, let's play, you know, you give me a subject and I'll give you a joke. And people would yell a subject and I give them a joke. And if they gave me too narrow a subject, I would just open the umbrella a little bit. You know, if somebody said garlic toast, I said, all right, Italian food, you know. And before they knew it, I was telling an Italian joke, and it was always fun. And after I'd been on the show 3 weeks or 4 weeks, Howard said, it's so great having you on the show, but I wish we had a piece of business. I said, well, I do this thing at my shows where people give me a subject and I give them a joke. He says, well, you know what, we'll do that, but we'll do it with 2-line jokes. And we'll call it Stump the Comedians. And I said, sounds fine with me. And then we started doing it. Of course, anybody that called up is going to tell a black joke or they were always offensive and jokes that you really couldn't tell on radio. So
Right.
I wound up giving a bunch of jokes to Fred Norris, and he would call in from the other room as this woman, Mrs. Flemstein, which is, I don't know if you guys go back that far, but all these stories are so priceless. There was a guy I worked with in Florida at the comic strip named Kelly Rogers, who's still around, just a great, great guy, really, really funny guy. When I met him, he was the MC, one of the MCs at Catch a Rising Star. And I loved him. And then we wound up working together at the Florida comic strip. Everybody worked down there. Brian Regan was sweeping floors down there. And on Sunday nights, the manager wouldn't show up. So it was like, the idiots took over the building. We did whatever we wanted. And Kelly Rogers would do this guy called Shecky Flemstein, and he'd tell horrible old Jewish jokes. And I thought, Flemstein is the funniest name I've ever heard. So then Fred is calling in with these jokes, and you couldn't tell if it was supposed to be an old man or an old lady. It was very ambiguous what he was doing. He'd call up, and after a couple weeks of doing that, he called up and I said, oh, is that Mrs. Flemstein again? Yeah, what do you want? And all of a sudden, he was Mrs. Flemstein. And after a couple more weeks, at some point, Robin said, oh, where'd we get the name Mrs. Flemstein? And I said, I came up with that. She says, oh, right, like you came up. Oh, Jackie came up with it. So meanwhile, they're not giving me credit for coming up with it. And I got Kelly Rogers pissed off at me for stealing the name from him. I'm like, I can't win for losing. Somebody make up your mind. I can't be guilty of everything. He wasn't really mad. It's just funny.
Yeah.
But I lifted it from a comic, and she wouldn't give me credit. But that was very typical, and it was fine, So that's what happened, and then it became a thing where people knew that they couldn't get on unless there was something that could slide under the wire. And I always knew the jokes, because anybody's going to call with a joke, it's going to be a joke that's going around. They're not bringing them up or making them up. So of course I knew the answers to them. And of course I knew the answers to the ones that Fred was asking. And people would, they said they would drive off the road. They couldn't believe it. It was no magic trick. It was actually pretty simple. But I did that at the end of my shows for decades. At the end of my shows, I'd bring up 8 or 10 or 12 girls on the stage and interview them, like, what's your name? And I would say stuff that would get me locked up now. Talk about their boobs, or your pants are so tight I can read your lips, that kind of stuff, And it would just, but when they came up on stage, they knew what was going to happen. And we'd have so much fun. And then I had the guys stand up in place, and I'd do them first. And the guys would say they're set up, and I'd tell them the punchline. And they say and the crowd would go nuts. But once in a while, somebody'd stump me with a joke, and the crowd would go even crazier. It was a no-lose situation. And I'd throw them a shirt, and they'd wave the shirt, and I'd do the girls one at a time. And it was just the most fun thing in the world. I got Stump the Joke Man shirts. You guys want? I'll send you a Stump the Joke Man shirt. I still got gray ones, but I had pink ones, blue ones, green ones, white ones, black ones. It was... Me and Nancy couldn't spend the money any faster if we tried, because I never had any money. And now all of a sudden we got hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like, when did this happen?
Right.
It was just an exciting ride, So
cool.
So that was kind of your first foray into acting. Like, it was kind of like these little setups you have. You didn't have like direct lines or anything, but you kind of were doing some acting on your comedy show.
It was all improv, but there's certain lines. A lot of improv is you say something off the cuff and it works, so you use it again. You know what I mean?
Right.
Somebody say, oh, was that an improv? Did you improv that? I said, yeah. 25 years ago. You know, a great instance, and my favorite thing is I was working at Governor's in the early 80s, and I was taking questions from the audience, and a guy stood up and I said, "What's your name?" And he said, "Jay." And I said, "Second letter?" and the place went nuts. 20 years later, I'm working at Rascals, and I asked the guy, "What's your name?" And he said, "Jay." And I said, "Second letter?" And the crowd went nuts. And I said, "I've been saving that for 20 fucking years." It's just so funny. It just, you know, it's just, that kind of stuff is just, you know, you live for that. Even though it means nothing to anybody, it just makes me smile, you know.
That's funny.
Yeah, man. You've been waiting 25 years to get it, and you got it that time.
It's sitting in my quiver, just waiting to get shot. That's all.
You're sitting in your Robin quiver.
My
so
Robin
Jackie,
quiver. No.
how did you?
No, I never had sex with her.
Don't lie. You've been so honest on the show.
I fingered her, but I never had sex with her.
Yes.
What's
same.
What's really funny is she didn't notice.
You should have used Howard's nose then. Hey now.
I didn't say that.
No, that's right, me. Jackie, I got some
one
fun.
of the turning points. One of the turning points in the show. You know, he was funny, and he was so smart. And the greatest thing, somebody came up to me one time and said, "You know, I was a big listener when I lived in Washington to the Howard Stern show. And then I moved to New York, and I heard you on the show." And he said, "You know, before you came on the show, Howard was outrageous and funny. But with you there, he's funny and outrageous." In other words, he was leading with the funny. And we all know you can get away with murder. You can insult the class bully if you can make them laugh, you know. And that was that was just, you know, so great. And, you know, Howard was like, you know, he was the guy, and everybody's like kind of treaded on eggshells, even Rob and everybody. And like, not me. What did I get? I'm a comic. I don't give a fuck. So we were talking about something, and I don't know what he was saying, something about the press was being rough on him, and she's, it's so much trouble. And I wrote something, and it was self-effacing, which he didn't do. He really didn't, you know, and he wound up being one of the strongest arrows in his quiver. He was he was complaining, and she's, and he goes, "Walk a mile in my nose, Robin." And it was so funny, and it was him making fun of him.
Yeah.
And that just put him in a different, that was like, you know, that was just a nice
pivotal
thing, you know. That's the word that I couldn't think of at 77 years old, but it was pivotal. I don't know if anybody ever agree with that, admit it, or acknowledge it, but it really was. And then, you know, when he fucked with himself, it was always funny, you know.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Jackie, just so you know, the ladies of the audience are saying that you look so great for 77. What's the secret? They say you look better now.
I'm really 57, but I've been telling them I'm 77, so people feel sorry for me, you know.
Smart.
You know.
All right, so I got 11. God, Jackie, I'm sorry.
You know, I'd love to say I take care of myself, but I do. You know, I haven't had a drink in 25 years, but I think I smoke enough pot to make up for it. You know.
Yes.
And I have fun, and I just started swimming again. I live right on the water, and it's heavenly. And I've actually been on a diet and lost 15 pounds, and I'm just thrilled about that. But, you know, if you live on the water and you walk, you know, even in the winter, you walk. Like I played golf yesterday. Like, it's kind of an exaggeration to call it golf, but I walked around 18 holes yesterday. and you get a little bit of a tan. That makes anybody look better. You know, so whoever's saying I look better, thank you. I appreciate that. And write me an email, and I'll go down on you.
Yeah.
There's a new term I've seen floating around for people that don't drink, but smoke some pot. It's called California Sober.
Yeah,
exactly.
Of course.
I've just seen it like in the past 2 weeks. I'm like, what? Oh, okay, that makes sense. California
Listen,
Sober.
anybody that has any questions, people always don't believe that I do this, but anybody can email me, jokeland@aol.com. Obviously, it didn't work for you morons because you couldn't get an email through to me. I even looked in the spam. You must be typing with your elbows. But
I
my
must
email,
be.
Jokeland@AOL, JOKELAND@AOL.com. I answer. Well, I got a bunch of people that work for me. So if you email me, I would love to answer you. And I'm in the show on Amazon Prime now.
Yes.
Which is great. I'm getting emails from people I haven't heard from in decades. Like, they usually start with, "You're still alive?" One of those things.
Oh my God.
But it's called The Better Sister. And I have a very small role in it. And my house has a very small role in it. But it's a murder mystery and it's terrific. And everybody's loving it. And my favorite thing is people tell me I was going to watch that show anyway. I couldn't believe you popped on, which is fun.
Yeah.
I'm not going to retire. I might retire from the money. Boy, when they use your house for a TV show, wow, they just back up the Brinks truck. They've used my house 5 times for Blue Bloods and The Affair and Instinct and The Better Sister. They're always here shooting something. And I love it. It's always fun. And all the people, all the techies, all the movie techies and all the TV techies, they've all been at their jobs for 40 years. And there's so much downtime in television and television and movies, that they're sitting around half the time. So to have something like the Howard Stern Show to listen to and laugh at, they all feel like they know me. So it's like old home week when they show up at my house. So, I just love it. Yeah, it's great fun.
Why do they use your house? Because it's your house, or is your house particularly phonogenic?
No, it's because it's a beautiful home on the water. It's not a mansion. It's like a regular, nice house, and the rooms are big, so there's plenty of room for the cameras and to move around. There's a little bit of property. You'll see.
Jackie, I don't want
to get to the house on the water. You'll know it's my house.
Okay.
I don't want to get you going here, but I've heard from a lot of people that they weren't going to watch Better Sister, and then they found out you were in it, and it made them watch it. So I think you need to go to Amazon and tell them you need more money.
They sent me $25,000 in appreciation, which really blew me away till I found out somebody, made a fake check and sent it to me. It wasn't real.
Oh, geez. Hopefully you didn't try and cash it.
No, I would love to think it influenced one person to watch, but who knows? I also have a documentary on Amazon Prime, and people are watching that, and they are loving that. And then people saying, "Oh, I didn't know this about you." Nobody ever knew anything about me. I was the moron on the show that got made fun of. There's no reason for anybody to know anything more. I was the guy on Johnny Carson opening the curtains. Like, who gives a fuck,
Well, that's kind of the beauty of this interview here is like you kind of let us behind the curtain of a lot of things here that maybe a lot of people, weren't aware of, which is kind of cool to get that sneak peek.
I hope you feel special because I've only done about 400 of these.
We deeply appreciate it, for sure.
I never get sick of talking about it. People come up and say, "Oh, I used to love you on the show," but I'm sure you're sick of hearing that. And I always say, if I ever get sick of hearing that, put a bullet to my head. I chased, for 40 years. I didn't get a paycheck till I was like 38 years old on the Stern Show. I spent my whole life chasing and chasing. And I like the people in show business and the movies, the television. They say, "Please, no autographs." They've been chasing the crowd for all those decades. And all of a sudden people are interested. Some people are just very, very full of crap,
Yeah.
I love it. I've always, I always had just the right level of fame that people didn't harass me and they weren't crappy and they knew I was approachable. So they'd come up and talk and hang out. And here in my hometown, I've been a loudmouth for 70 years. So, it's no big deal to anybody, What are you going to do?
That's great.
So, Jackie, I have these fun 11 rapid fire questions I want to ask you right before we go. But I know you got some tour dates coming up. So if you want to let the audience know those or where they could go to maybe find them.
Well, tour is a little bit of exaggeration, but I'm
Okay.
working. Are we on live?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, well, I'm working in Bohemia on Long Island at McGuire's Comedy Club this Saturday at 7 p.m. with my good friend Peter Bales, who's also my podcast partner. We have a podcast called Stand Up Memories, which is just great fun. We talked to all the guys we started with and all, but we've had we had Robert Klein on. And you know who we had on the podcast? You guys are too young, but there was a show called Get Smart. You ever heard of it?
Oh, yeah. I watched
It was
Get
created by Mel Brooks. Well, 99, Barbara Feldon, who played 99, came on our podcast, and she's cool. 90 and 90 years old, and she was wonderful. She was so interesting, and that's the kind of stuff we do. Well, he's my opening act for this Saturday, and then July 25th, I'm working at the American, which is a hotel in Freehold, New Jersey, which is a great spot for comedy. And
I played there.
Do you know it? Do you know the place?
Yeah, I played there one time. Somebody threw me a kind of a paid gig there out of nowhere, and I got to play there one time. Nice area.
For Dino. For Dino.
I didn't. So the comedian booked me, not the guy who books the place.
Oh, well, it's a great place, and I always enjoy that. And then every August, I work at Giggles, which is in Saugus, north of Boston, with Lenny Clark, who's one of the funniest people in the world. And me and Lenny Clark and Christina Hurley, we've been doing this for like 5 years. We do Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And it's a little club. His brother owns it, and we just blow the roof off the place. And that's really, really fun. But all this information is on my website, which is jokeland.com. And there's jokes and, there's video.
Merch.
It's merch, but under the video thing, I used to do phone calls with this guy, David Feldman. And it's like 10 or 15 minutes of the filthiest jokes you've ever heard in your life. And there's like, we did over 100 of them. I think there's like 6 of them posted up there, but people just can't believe, and they're politically incorrect and fun and, fuck the world. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So you're not worried about getting canceled, we'll say.
Yeah. What are they going to say? You're not working at McGuire's this weekend, my friend. Sorry.
We'll take your podcast away. No more shoots at your house. All right, Jackie, you ready for these 11 rapid fire questions?
8 inches.
Yes. So it's just like 2 words or names, and you pick one of them. Kind of see where your brain's at. High or low?
High.
Okay. Grillo or
wait. What the fuck?
Yeah. This is a psychological test. So once
how many people have said low?
Not many.
Maybe the guys in Chad's old band, because they're idiots.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. Some of them are anyway.
Yeah, for sure. All right, but you gotta go in succession here, otherwise it won't work. Grillo or Stuttering John?
Grillo.
Radio or podcasts?
Radio.
Fred or Gary?
Both.
Black or white?
Both.
TV or movies?
Both.
Okay. Gay or straight?
Both.
Weed or alcohol?
People say, how do you feel about gay people? And I say, I don't see color.
There you go.
Perfect.
Do you like gay guys with big penises or small? No, that wasn't one of them. That wasn't one of them. Weed or alcohol? Yeah, I knew it was both. Weed or alcohol, Jaggy?
Weed, but there was a day I might have said both, and before that, I would have said alcohol. I put in my time at the Mahogany. I had a great string of drinking, but I needed to stop.
Yeah, and you did it, man. Congratulations for that. That's not an easy feat.
Absolutely.
You know, I always tell people it's ridiculous to congratulate somebody for doing something that they didn't do. I stopped drinking. Congratulations. It's not something I did. It's something I stopped doing. But thank you.
It's still hard to do. Like if I had to think, I don't drink often, but if I had to like tell myself you could never have a drink again, that might seem daunting to me. And like,
if somebody had told me on I quit on Cinco de Mayo, which was totally by accident. But if somebody had told me you're not going to have a drink for 24 days, I would have said you're out of your mind.
Oh, wow.
It's been 24 years, just said, they say a day at a time, and people say, well, it's such a hard thing to do, but it didn't go anywhere for however long. And I said, well, it's ridiculous. Anybody can not drink. They sit in their room. And then you find out, you go out to a bar and you get a tonic with a lime in it and put a stir in it. Number one, nobody knows if you're drinking or not. Number two, nobody gives a fuck. They don't care if you drink. You think everybody's going to go, you shouldn't be in there. You're an imposter. You're not drinking. They could care less. And then somebody get a drink and stand there and hold it for a half hour. And here I am, dry as a bone. I feel like saying, are you going to drink that or not? Jesus Christ, and it wound up not being a big deal, and you go out to dinner. I got divorced. Me and Nancy got divorced, and I go out to dinner. Is it okay if I have a glass of wine? Well, fuck yes. How else am I going to get to finger you?
Exactly.
Well, you ruined my last rapid fire question. Howard or Robin? Both. I knew it.
No, as far as what?
Just as far as like, Gary or Fred, like the whole rapid fire thing.
Would I rather hang out with Howard?
Ah, very cool. I could see that actually. Robin, while she does come across pretty cool on the show, she might be a little like snooty.
No, me and Howard had a lot of fun together. Like at the late 80s, he was on Hollywood Squares and he took me with him. And it was so long ago, we flew out on the MGM Grand, which was an airline that I think it lasted a year. It was a very fancy airline where they had like a bar, but the seats were bolted down, and we had our own little compartment where you could watch video, VHS tapes, in fact. And in fact, the pilot gave us his own personal copy of Vitamina Vegemin with I Love Lucy, It was, so we had a lot of fun. We did a lot of stuff together, me and him,
Very cool.
Yeah. Well, Jackie, we thank you for coming on the pod, and we will love to have you on again sometime. I know you do multiples of these, but maybe if you can grace us.
I was kidding. I'll do it anytime. I'm always ready. Now, are you getting feedback as we're talking?
Yes, so we do have these like chats that come through over here, and like we could put them up and stuff. This gentleman's calling you a legend. I just we kind of don't pay attention to him much as the show's going on because I can get distracted. But we do go through and kind of.
So are you getting a reasonably positive feedback or what?
Oh,
all been really good, man. They're all happy to have you on the show, and some people like, how did we not hear this dude before and all these stories? So yeah, a lot of good feedback. And just so you're aware, Jackie,
I will plug my book. Is called The Joke Man, Bow to Stern, and that's on Amazon Prime or Amazon, whatever it is. And it's it's in hardcover, but it's also in paperback. I think they ran out of hardcover and stopped making them. But and people love, if you like comedy and if you like the Stern Show and if you like me and if you like to laugh, people just love the autobiography. And what's really crazy is I wrote enough for 2 books. And I've got the second book sitting in my computer. And people write to me and say, "Oh, I really loved your book." So I just email them the second half.
There you go.
I don't want to die with my other half of my book sitting in my computer, So I'm very generous with that stuff. I know people don't see me in terms of the word generous because Howard made a point of telling everybody, my friends that was the hardest thing for them to believe was how do these people think that you're cheap? You're the most generous person that we ever met. But I'd have a party and have 200 people here and feed everybody lobster. And then they'd complain to Howard that I was swimming when I was supposed to be cooking the lobster. I'm like, fuck you. I spent thousands of dollars. I'm going to go down and swim and enjoy myself before I start cooking. But you know, that Jackie's cheap. Now, to this day, somebody will come up and say, Jackie, you want me to buy you a drink? I know you won't buy me a drink, you cheap fuck. And I always laugh. And the person I'm with, it worked. You know,
I love how you
genius. He's a genius at finding your button and pushing your button, you know.
But I love how you rolled with it too and never felt the need to defend yourself and stuff like that. Took it on the chin and just made the best of it. That's smart of you to do. I got one thing for you, Jackie. This is from an audience member that left a voicemail specifically for you. So I want to play it before you go, and then we'll wrap it up if you don't mind. Here we go. The voicemail. This is from, I don't know. We shall see.
Hello, everyone. This is Bill the Thrill. Not a first-time listener, not a first-time caller. But anyway, I was excited to hear that Jackie, the joke man Martling, was coming on because when I actually did listen to the Howard Stern show, that was the motherfucker that wrote the jokes, and everyone knew it. And I just want to ask him some questions, and hopefully he doesn't hold back and he answers these the best way he can. And hey, Jackie, first of all, I want to know, what was one joke that you wrote that you knew would just piss off everyone, but you were like, fuck it, and still told it anyway? And then also...
Should I pause it, Jackie, so you can answer?
Well, I never wrote anything to piss anybody off, but very, very rarely did Howard not use something because it was over the top. Like sometimes he just wouldn't use it for whatever. But one thing I wrote that he almost had a heart attack, there was a horrible story. And this is, I think it was back in the 80s. And these assholes in Texas had tied up a black guy with a rope and tied the rope to the back of their car and dragged him to his death. It was a horrible story. Horrible. And I wrote something and put it in front of Howard, and he goes, "We'll be right back." I went to commercial, and he looked at me and said, "What planet are you from?" Because my job was to write funny things no matter what. And what I wrote was Polish water skiing.
Wow.
And he was like, holy fuck, man.
Yeah.
And it was in bad taste, but my job was to take what's given and try and make it funny. There's nothing funny about somebody being dragged to their death, whether they're black or green or whatever. But I was just being an idiot, you know. And,
hey, the job of a comedian.
They would have canceled me, my family, my people on my block, you know.
You're not kidding, man. All right, so you heard it there. That was Jackie's joke that came to his brain right there. I'm going to continue and see what else we got here.
Do you really ever think that Howard Stern gave you the absolute credit that you deserved for launching that show? Because, man, your jokes were legendary, and true listeners to that show woke up every morning and know it was like, what was Jackie going to fucking deliver for us today? And then last but not...
You kind of answered that.
He gave me plenty of credit and gave me lots of money and promoted the hell out of me. Could he have done more? I mean, you know, in 18 years in that show, I don't think he ever said the words, "You should see Jackie's show live. He's really funny." He always did my plugs. But, you know, Robin came to see me one time with her boyfriend. So long ago, her boyfriend was Tony, and Caroline's was on 8th Avenue, not the Seaport, not Broadway. Caroline's, the first Caroline's was on 8th Avenue in the city. You know, Howard, Tony and I went to see Jackie last night, and there's nothing negative I could say.
Wow.
I said, okay. And then that was it. That was the end of that conversation, which was a compliment. Coming from her, that was a huge. There's nothing I could say.
Yeah. I can't give you any material. All right, let's finish up here on the voicemail.
At least, here's the big one. Don't you think, or do you think it's hypocritical that Howard built his whole legacy on being a shock jock? And he pushing, like, with your help, he pushed every single boundary known to man, got fined for it from the FCC. And then now he acts like a politically correct activist defending everything and rewriting history. You know, Jack, I'd love to hear your raw, honest take on all of that. And, you know, that's it, man. But, you know, love your work. And, you know, that's that.
Well, thank you, Wild Bill. I appreciate that. It's funny because people are like, I can't listen to Howard anymore. You know, he's become this leftist jerk, blah, blah, blah. The only thing Howard and I probably agree on is his politics. I'm as leftist, I'm as lefty as I could be. And we've always agreed on that. You know, he didn't all of a sudden, you know, I don't know whether they thought he was a righty or a conservative. I don't know what people thought. Politics had nothing to do with our game. He always had Trump on, but it was only because he was such a pompous shit. You know, like at one point, Howard said, I'll endorse for governor the first candidate that calls up. And Christy Todd Whitman called up the show, and he backed her. You know, that's how ridiculous the politics were. And then Howard ran for governor, which was, you know, as a libertarian, and none of us even knew what that meant. And his platform for governor, I wrote his platform for governor.
Oh, boy.
The two platforms for governor, I had been to work in Boston a bunch of times, and it was nothing worse than getting done with work at noon and knowing I could go home to Bayville and go swimming. And I'd sit on the Grand Central Parkway for 2 hours because they were repairing the road. And then I'd be coming home late at night from Boston, and they had the mercury vapor lights, the huge lights, and they were working on the roads at night, so they wouldn't slow down the traffic during the day. And I told Howard, I said, it's so brilliant that it makes so much sense. So his platforms for governor were, he's going to have them do all road work at night, and they're going to fill the potholes in New York City with the homeless. And that's as political as it got. But I don't know what he's talking about or what he's doing. I don't care about any of it. But it was never like, wow, all of a sudden he's a lefty. I'm a lefty. You know, I totally agree with all that. You know, anybody that's behind Trump has to be totally out of their fucking mind, and nobody's going to change. You could talk to a Trumpy for hours. You're not going to change their mind, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. I just don't happen to share that opinion.
Love it. I think part of the question was, do you think like Howard is for free speech, or is he just for his own free speech?
I don't listen. I don't know. To quote my old friend Richard Belzer, modern science has yet to come up with a unit of measurement that could express how little I give a fuck.
Yes, the bells, baby.
Boom.
All
right, let's leave it there, Jackie. I think that's great to leave the audience with that. Again, man, we appreciate you coming on. You're a lot of fun. We just scratched the surface with you, dude. So we would appreciate having you on again, man.
Anytime. Now, if both of you guys should email me, and I'll send you some fun stuff. And if you give me a mailing address, if you want a copy of my book, I'll be glad to send you my book. You know,
I would like to wear one of your T-shirts on the show too. So yeah,
send me mailing and send me all your information. Don't worry, no salesman will call.
I'm sure. Yeah, we'll be on Jackie's mailing list, but that's all gravy.
You know what? I had one of those shirts here for 1,000 years.
Yeah, show it out if you got it.
You know, once in a while, people call up and say, you know, or they email, I really want one of those Stump the Joke Man T-shirts. And I don't have many of them. So I'm like, I'm sorry, but it's a lot of money. And they say, I don't care. So they put the money in my PayPal. I send them a shirt and they're like, holy shit, who knew? I'm glad I asked,
Yes.
So
the one and only Jackie Martling. Again, we want to thank him for coming on. We will have some more fun with him in the future. Do not forget to go check him out on Better Sister on Amazon Prime. Check out his documentary on there and pick up his book. There's a lot of
the documentary is simply called Joke Man. It's that simple. Joke Man.
And the book one more time, Jackie. Of course.
The Joke Man, Bow to Stern. But you got to put in the Joke Man, because if you only put in Bow to Stern, you get a 7th grade sailing manual. So
that's funny.
The Joke Man, Bow to Stern. Thank you, guys. I totally enjoyed this.
Awesome.
Same.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The one and only Jackie, the Joke Man Martling, folks. Again, we appreciate him coming on. He's an awesome dude. Make sure to go check him out at his upcoming shows. Yeah, I would go check out his stand-up comedy, man. He's a riot.
He's hilarious. It's freaking great. That was awesome.
That was really fun.
Mm-hmm.
The good old Jackie. Gracious audience, we want to thank you for coming on this ride with us. We got so much more coming up. We were planning show 100. We're still planning show 100. Chad and I got some stuff to talk about, but it is approaching us quickly. But we will figure something out. It's show 98. Peace out, ladies and gentlemen.
All right.
Boys
Thanks, everybody.
and girls. We're going blind. And we're ending